Hey guys, first I want to preface this video by saying thank you very much to all of our proud freedom fighters out there, and especially the ones of the Anti-COVID Alliance group. You guys, you know, I'm at a loss for words. Every protest we set up, there's people that show up, there's people fighting back for our freedoms. There's people willing to stand out there and put themselves out there and take risks and put themselves in uncomfortable situations in order to get the job done. We know what has to be done here. And there are plenty of people that are willing to stand up and put their names and their faces at the forefront of a movement to gain back the freedoms that this country was founded upon and to gain back the freedoms that we want our children to have in the future. So thank you guys all very much for that. Now, this Tabor Times protest that we started as a Tabor Times protest. A woman came out, told us we had to pay for advertising in order to get a letter in the paper. I didn't get it on film, which is really unfortunate. I got pretty much everything else on film. She was quite spiteful towards us. The other members who were there will gladly confirm that for you as well. And eventually kicked us off her property. We were one step onto their deck because their door said closed, so we figured we could stand up there, right? Well, we stepped 1 foot off their deck when she came out. She came out, though, after the police had come and talked to us, and then Howie Kaler pulled me aside individually around the corner to talk to me, and I have full footage of that, and I have full footage of what happened after, which was we joined an End the Lockdown protest in front of Grant Hunter's MLA office, and it was actually set up by endthelockdown.com. And a woman approached us when we were at the Tabor Times building and asked us if we were going over there at noon for that protest. So we did. We protested at the Tabor Times for an hour, and then we went to the MLA's office and protested there for an hour. So I have footage of both of that coming up. Sorry, I know this is a bit long-winded. I also wanted to give you guys my speech because I didn't have time to give it at the Tabor Times building, so I'm going to read that for you next. So just keep in mind, this was supposed to be read in front of the Tabor Times building, with the police showing up and the woman coming outside and us finding out about the lockdowns protest that was about to happen. I didn't really have time to give this speech. It's like 6 pages long, so bear with me. I'm going to read it for you now because I do want to get it out there. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to mourn the death of one of our great freedoms as Canadian citizens. A freedom supposedly guaranteed to us by our Canadian Charter, listed as one of the 4 fundamental freedoms of this country, our freedom of the press. Freedom of the press requires an unbiased, honest presentation of the facts by the journalists hired to report them. These journalists have a responsibility to their readers and to the people of the communities in which they are based. This responsibility, in many ways, is equal in importance to that of a police officer, a judge, or a government official. A police officer is given a loaded gun and a certain amount of authority over his fellow man that can both become very dangerous weapons when placed in the wrong hands. A judge, meanwhile, has the authority to hand down a lengthy jail sentence, a hefty fine, or to withdraw charges completely and set a person free. Those powers can also be extremely dangerous if they fall into the wrong hands. Government officials, well, they can raise or lower taxes, pass or repeal laws, and institute regulations and restrictions that have the ability to greatly affect our lives, whether negatively or positively. I think we have seen enough over the years of just what that kind of power can do when it falls into the wrong hands, haven't we? Now, how about a journalist? Journalists and their overseers have a significant amount of control over the flow of information, the revelation of facts, and over which side of the story is being told and for what reason. How dangerous a weapon could that possibly be in the wrong hands? Dangerous enough, at least, that the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, our constitutional document, places freedom of the press right next to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of assembly among its fundamentals. The intended purpose of the press is to present us with all of the facts exactly as they are, in an unbiased, honest manner, so that the people themselves can discuss and debate amongst each other and inevitably decide what they believe and what they stand for. The idea is that the cream eventually rises to the top, that the best and most agreed upon actions win favor in the court of public opinion, and humanity moves forward together, with all of us a part of the political conversation. Another requirement of an honest, free press? The people themselves, the people who perform the labor, the people who pay the taxes, and the people who make this country great. Those people are given a voice as well. That is included in our freedom of the press. That is why there is the letter to the editor section in the newspaper. That is why reporters immediately look to interview a witness or someone involved in the story they are reporting on and get them to tell their side of what happened, what they saw, what they heard. Because the voice of the people down here, making things happen, keeping this country going, that is who we are supposed to be hearing from. That is whose opinion matters around here. Our opinions, our thoughts, our experiences, they matter, and the press is supposed to treat them like they matter. But whose opinion truly matters when it's the federal government that writes your checks at the end of the month? You don't think that a government-funded news media might be pressured by that same government to present the facts in a way that is beneficial to them? That is exactly what they do, and that is why we stand here today. Because our freedom of the press is not being upheld when they are presenting only the facts that they want you to know. Go ahead and read any mainstream news release in Canada about COVID or the hotel quarantines or the vaccines or masks, just one that speaks out of line with the government-appointed narrative. The editor of this local newspaper, the Tabor Times, or one of the other newspaper editors in this area, and we have this on record, wrote an anonymous piece a few weeks back attacking anti-maskers, as they so eloquently called us. Yes, an anonymous letter from an editor at the Tabor Times. They claim that wearing or not wearing a mask is not a rights issue at all. They claim that wearing a mask is science, and that there is no conspiracy by the government. And you know what really says journalistic integrity? Claiming it's science, yet never listing a source, or a study, or a stat. It's just science, I guess. They even said, and I quote, "With vaccines rolling out, it's more important than ever to still take precautions so Albertans don't have to go back into restrictions and lockdowns." Now tell me I'm wrong, please, but doesn't that sound like your government talking there? They even used such terms in their letter as stop the spread and flatten the curve. I kid you not. And claimed that public spaces have always had rules and regulations in place, listing no shoes, no shirt, no service as one of these rules. I'm sorry guys, but when was the last time you went down to the dog park and saw that sign? How about the beach? Are there any of those signs uptown along the sidewalks in public spaces? Or do you think that maybe those no shoes, no shirt, no service signs are on private businesses, not public spaces? To quote our good friends at Town Council, maybe you guys just need to get educated, Tabor Times. See, the thing was, the Tabor Times editor told me that these editorials, like the one about anti-maskers, were to encourage discussion and debate. So I decided to have a debate with them, and I responded to that editorial with a letter of my own. I contacted a reporter here at the Tabor Times that I have been in contact with since the very beginning of the group, and he thanked me and assured me that my response would be printed in the upcoming Wednesday edition of the newspaper. I responded in my letter by correcting them on the anti-maskers label and how it is an oversimplification and a mildly derogatory assessment of what we were actually about. We believe in the freedoms this country was founded on. We stand by our local business owners. We stand against mandatory government quarantines, and we believe the toll these restrictions have taken on our country are far greater than the toll of the virus. I questioned their resolve if they hid behind the mask of anonymity in their letter. Pun absolutely intended, by the way. I asked them what they think we have to gain by looking like an outsider and feeling ostracized for not wearing a mask, when all we want to do is buy groceries to feed our families without being told what to put on our faces or our kids' faces. I asked them what statistical data they based their statement of it's common sense to wear a mask upon. Surely not the data that a human being breathes in at minimum 5 times the amount of CO2 with a mask on than they do without. I asked them whether they had looked into the stats on comorbidities, which is serious underlying health conditions that contributed to death. And I asked them if they saw that 72.3%, it was 72.3% at the time, it is actually now risen to 77.4% of all COVID-attributed deaths had 3 or more serious underlying health conditions that also contributed to their passing. Or that the average age of a COVID fatality was 82 years old, now 81 years old. And yet the average lifespan of a Canadian in 2019 was 81.95 years old. In 2020, between males and females combined, it was exactly 82 years old. All facts from the Alberta Health Services website, or Statista.com, an official stats counter, by the way. I have them all here with me. To make a long story short, my letter was not published as promised. I was told it was because I had called the author a coward for remaining anonymous. Yet it was perfectly fine to call us anti-maskers and to tell us to grow up and have some common sense. They also listed my use of questionable facts, as they called them, clearly not taking a second of their time to research them and confirm that they were accurate. So I ask you, do we have freedom of the press when these supposed news stations decide what facts are questionable to print? Do we have freedom of the press when their editors can attack a group of people and then not allow that group of people to respond? No, we do not, and that is a very dangerous thing. Thank you. Here we are outside the Tabor Times. There are some people inside. A woman actually came out to us and told us that we have to pay for advertising to get a letter in the editor. That was something we didn't know before. I'm getting ready. Sounds radio.
Lockdown Alberta. So go to your MLAs today, April 15th.
Another
We're trying
cop.
to target them all today.
Oh,
so
we didn't know.
So if you guys, I don't know how long you're here, but if you want to come over to the.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't know how many. I signed up to end the lockdown and they sent me an email. I tried to tell. I'm from Coaldale.
Well, you can join us.
Yeah, we'll head there after.
Of our local newspaper, they will not print any of our letters at all.
Okay.
And then they keep printing garbage about COVID, and they will not print it on the side. So that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Grant Hunter, he didn't sign for those 16 MLAs to lock.
Hey, how are you guys?
Not bad.
Beautiful day for some protesting.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous out here. We're supposed to have a super nice weekend too. A little bit of rain, but it'll be good. So we got a call here. Is something going on, or?
Well, we just assume it was obviously from the lady that came out and yelled at us or something.
Oh, okay. So kind of some back and forth stuff. Or?
Well, we would just came out and yelled at us.
We thought no one was in here because it says closed. So we just assumed no one was in here.
Yeah, we thought it was closed. It says closed on the office.
Oh, okay.
We didn't know anyone was inside at all.
We kind of just seen somebody moving. Was like, oh, some people in there. And then a lady just came out and was like, have you guys got a problem? Stood there taking photos. We did say, yeah, we do. It's with the censorship. We have sent in letters and you said you would publish them. And then you flat out didn't. You're lying or censorship. And then she started saying, they have the right to publish whatever they want. You have to pay to put stuff in the paper, which we didn't know. They never told us what it
Okay.
is. So we just said, no, you don't have to pay for our letter to editorial. And I said, you do. Then went inside.
And that was it.
That was pretty much it, yeah.
So yeah, we're just. One of the reporters had directly told me that it would be in the paper on Wednesday, and then he did not do it.
Something get put in there.
Yeah.
And then
We all
send
A letter to the editor, yeah, a
They refused
response.
to print anything.
And they told me that they would print
So
it, and they
they're
didn't.
censoring what you see in your local paper. So that's why we're
And
here.
we have a
Just
bit
a
of an issue
censorship
with
issue.
that, just because it is this is a local newspaper that a town. This is a small town. Some people always rely on anything, right? So it shouldn't be just one-sided bias, and especially if it is she's clearly passionate about one-sided bias, and
Clearly.
that's the only thing you're putting out to the community. That shouldn't be okay. And yeah, so that's pretty much.
So was she just upset that you guys were here? Or
Yeah,
was it
yeah.
just that you guys were...
She's
Just
upset.
that
Yeah.
We're arguing with their
I guess
opinion.
she's
Publish all of
upset
our
that they're
letters.
being put on the spot about finally being called out about
Oh, okay.
censorship, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been here for? I was just down here and you guys weren't here, so...
Yeah,
Not very long.
Yeah.
So far.
15, 20 minutes, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see what's going on and stuff.
We're not here to cause any trouble, just stand here and make our points
We don't even
known.
know
So
that
we just want people in town to know that there's another
Yeah,
side than
and
the
there's
Tabor
nothing,
Times.
and there's nothing wrong with that if you guys do it the right way.
Thank
Have
you, we
at it, right?
appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so if you guys.
At 12?
Yeah, we didn't know about it at all.
Hours.
Oh,
If you want to
okay.
walk on
Maybe we
over.
will.
We
Okay.
will.
I haven't seen anybody there either, but I just got here.
Might be us.
Okay.
We didn't know about it.
All right.
Awesome, thank you.
So I talked to Stan. Is that who you
Stan
had
Ashby,
conversation with?
yeah.
Okay. So I've had conversations with Stan, and I think more than anything, it's a matter of coming up with some kind of a understanding. He'll print.
But he wouldn't though.
No, he will. But it's just apparently the way whatever was submitted or whatever wasn't submitted in a way that would allow him.
That's what he says.
print it?
We resubmitted multiple since then, and still nothing.
So you need to ask him and come up with some kind of a mutual agreement. And they're more than willing to print whatever.
They're not, though.
Well, they are.
They're not.
Well, they did the first time. When you guys first went out there, they put it
Yeah,
in the
they printed an
newspaper.
article about us showing up.
So that's
Yes.
what I'm saying is that that's a better way to deal with it than this. Because this is going to change nothing. You need to have
Sure
some...
it is. It's making a statement that we're not going to stand for
It
this.
makes a statement, but it doesn't change anything. They're just going to dig their heels in and say, we're not printing that.
That's fine, and so will we.
So what do you want? Do you want something printed or you don't
We want the
something
people to
printed?
know that they are censoring facts and that they are censoring letters. We have sent multiple letters,
they
and
have-
not just me,
they-
and they censor every single one.
They have the right to censor anything
Yes, they do,
put in
but
their
it's
newspaper.
biased, and
So,
we know it's biased.
What I'm telling you is, what you should do is have some open dialogue, and not 10 people. You and Stan should have some open dialogue about what your goal is, what you want to submit, and how it can be written so it can be submitted. That's how you're going to get your word out there.
No, because I understand what they're doing, man. I don't understand what they're doing. I read the emails. I had email contact with Stan. He was coming up with all these lies. They were lies. They were blatant lies, saying over the name calling. Yeah, well, he called people anti-maskers. All I said was he was cowardly for staying anonymous to write that letter.
What I'm telling you
right?
is...
It's all lies, though.
Brett, you're never going to get anything printed, and you're going to get way more of an audience.
I won't get anything printed anyway.
Listen to me. You're going to get way more of an audience through them.
But that'll never
Then if-
happen, is
yes,
what I'm
it
telling
will.
you.
I just talked to Stan.
Yes, of course he's going to
Stan-
tell you that,
Stan
Howie. I
told
know how
me-
this works.
He said we've had correspondence back and forth with these people. We've tried to make some suggestions. I said, are you willing to print something in relation to their story? He said, absolutely. I said, so you need one person yourself, because you're kind of the guy who's been in charge of all of this stuff, to make contact with him and to come up with something that works for him and works for you. That's the way you're going to get your word out. I've seen it. I've been here 25 years. I've seen it over and over again where they print things and I go, oh, why the heck are they
COVID's
printing
different.
that? Why are
COVID's
they-"
different. They're censoring anything that goes against the narrative. Anything, and this proves it. Teresa sent a letter. Another lady over there has sent a letter, and they were perfectly worded.
But here's the problem:
They
is you
censor
can't
them.
have. They're not going to print every letter. You need to have.
After they promised me they
You
would
need
print
to
it.
have one person, being yourself, who takes all the information from your group, and have one open dialogue with the editor of the paper to come up with something that works for you and works for them. That's what you need to do.
We've tried.
Well,
But are we doing anything illegal?
no, you're not. You're
Okay,
not.
well, we want
you
to
are.
stand there
You
and
know,
do
wear
our thing.
masks, but I'm not going to go down that road.
Okay, well, we're going to stand there and do our thing, though. We want to make our statement. It's important to us. We know they're censoring
So
us.
what you're telling me is you're not willing to work with me. And I
It's
had
not
this-
about working with you.
and
I have tried to work with
I had
them.
this conversation with you before. We are willing to work with you if you're willing to work with us.
If I'm not doing anything illegal,
I've
there's nothing
given
to
you a
work with here.
suggestion. I've
So-
given you a suggestion as to how you can work towards
And I appreciate it.
making it better.
I appreciate it.
I want you to take that to heart.
I will. I'll
Okay.
take it into consideration.
I just talked to Stan,
Okay.
and he's open to that. So that's what I'd like you to do.
I'll take it into consideration, yes. Thank you. What do you know? We got another protest going on. Tabor's like a hot spot right now. Hey! Good to see some fellow protesters.
Thank you for breaking the lockdown rules. We appreciate your support. Thank you for breaking the lockdown rules. We appreciate your support.
So how did you find out?
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we're part of the Tabor and Alliance group, so they posted on the Facebook page.
We should all be at home in our lockdowns if we're not out fighting for our freedom. Thank you for breaking the lockdown rules. We appreciate your support. Thank you. Thank you for breaking the lockdown rules. We appreciate the support. We should all be at home in our lockdowns if we're not out fighting for our freedom. Don't just try and buy your freedom. Freedom isn't free. Thank you for breaking the lockdown rules. We appreciate the support. No more masks!
No more masks!
No more lockdowns! No more communism!
You know you're in Tabor when.
Woo! Thank you for breaking the lockdown rules. We appreciate the support. Freedom isn't free. Thank you for breaking the lockdown rules. We appreciate the support.